He was on his way to work on Monday morning when he heard the news that a body had been discovered in a rented flat in the Old Thinkholt district near the city centre. A young man had been murdered, his throat slashed. The CID were quick to arrive on the scene, and the rest of Sigurður Óli's day was spent interviewing the young man's neighbours. At one point he ran into Elínborg, who was in charge of the case and appeared as calm and unflappable as ever. Rather too calm and unflappable for Sigurður Óli's taste. During the day he took a phone call from Patrekur, reminding him that they had planned to meet, but as he had heard about the murder he said Sigurður Óli should forget it. Sigurður Óli told him it was all right. They could meet later that day at a cafe he suggested. Shortly afterwards he received another call, this time from the station, about a man who was asking after Erlendur and refused to leave until he was allowed to see him. The man had been informed that Erlendur was on leave in the countryside, but would not believe it. Finally he said he would talk to Sigurður Óli instead, but eventually left after refusing to give his name or state his business. Lastly, Perkþóra rang and asked him to meet her the following evening if he could spare the time. Having spent the day at the crime scene, Sigurður Óli went to meet Patrekur at 5 at the appointed cafe in the city centre. Patrekur was there first, accompanied by his wife's brother-in-law, whom Sigurður Óli knew vaguely from parties at his friend's house. There was a beer in front of the man, and he had apparently already emptied a shot glass. "Bit heavy for a Monday," Sigurður Óli commented, looking at him disapprovingly as he took a seat at their table. The man smiled awkwardly and glanced at Patrekur. "I needed it," he said, and took a sip of beer. His name was Hermann, and he was a wholesaler, married to Susanna's sister. "So, what's up?" asked Sigurður Óli. He sensed that Patrekur was not his usual self, and guessed that he was uncomfortable about having arranged this meeting without warning Sigurður Óli that Hermann was coming along. As a rule he was the easygoing type, quick to smile and always cracking jokes. They sometimes went to the gym together early in the morning and grabbed a quick coffee afterwards, or to the cinema, and had even holidayed together from time to time. Patrekur was the closest thing Sigurður Óli had to a best friend. "Are you familiar with the term swinging?" Patrekur asked now. "No, what? You mean dancing?" Patrekur's lips twitched. "If only," he said, his eyes on Hermann, who was sipping his beer. Hermann's handshake had been weak and moist when Sigurður Óli greeted him. He had thin hair, small regular features, and in spite of being smartly dressed in a suit and tie, had several days' stubble on his chin. "So you're not talking about the swing, that 40s dance?" Sigurður Óli asked. "No, not a lot of dancing goes on at the parties I'm talking about," Patrekur said quietly. Hermann finished his beer and waved to the waiter to bring him another. Sigurður Óli looked at Patrekur. They had founded a neoconservative society known as Milton in the 6th form and produced an 8-page magazine of the same name, singing the praises of individual enterprise and the free market. They had booked well-known right-wing speakers to come to the school and address thinly attended meetings. Later, much to Sigurður Óli's surprise, Patrekur had turned against the magazine, developing left-wing sympathies and starting to speak out against the American base on Mýrdalshéiði, calling for Iceland to leave NATO. This was around the time he met his future wife, so it probably reflected her influence. Sigurður Óli had struggled on alone to keep Milton going, but when the magazine dwindled to 4 pages, and even the young conservatives no longer bothered to turn up to the meetings, the whole thing died a natural death. Sigurður Óli still owned all the back issues of Milton, including the one containing his essay, "The U.S. to the Rescue: Lies About CIA Involvement in South America." He and Patrekur had started university at the same time, and even after Sigurður Óli had abandoned his law degree in order to enroll at a police academy in the U.S., they continued to write to each other.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.